So it does look like for NVIDIA, the problem in the near future is not going to come from the demand side. But what about the supply side?
Hi everyone, and welcome to the Curious Investor, Saxo's new video series where we talk about topics which are driving the investment markets. My name is Fiona. It's early June 2023, and I'm with our Saxo strategist Charu Chanana, and we'll be discussing about developments in AI, which are driving the markets recently. So hi Charu, welcome to the discussion.
Thank you, Fiona. Thank you so much for hosting this very interesting topic today. I think it's quite appropriate to be talking about AI as our first episode of The Curious Investor, because it's really the topic that's making everybody so curious right now.
Indeed. Yeah, I mean, with recent moves in the markets, how Nvidia actually reached $1 trillion in market cap and also driving up the US market equity valuations. It's simply really impressive right now. So there's been a lot of discussion about it. But where do you see, the valuations right now, and whether investors should still go into it? Right.
Yeah, absolutely. There's been a lot of talks about the kind of potential that this technology has. It's massive. It can really transform every aspect of our lives. So I think it's really interesting that we've talked about potential a lot of times in our research articles, at Saxo. But today's discussion, as you've started it talking about the valuation, because that's one of the first concerns about AI that's starting to hover over the minds of many of our clients, many of our investors, and people we speak with. So certainly, if you just speak about the sole winner that Nvidia has been of this entire trend, their valuations certainly look quite stretched. They have to kind of show some massive amounts of growth in the medium term to kind of really justify the valuations that it is trading at right now, which really is going to be I would say a medium to low probability event. It's really hard to see that kind of growth in any sector, any industry, or any one player. But understandably, NVIDIA is the leader in this space. It manufactures the GPUs or the chips that go into this technology. And any company that is doing any amount of research or development will need those chips. So it does look like for NVIDIA, the problem in the near future is not going to come from the demand side. But what about the supply side? Does it have enough capacity to be able to continue to meet the growing demands of this energy? But what about the supply side? Can NVIDIA continue to be able to supply the chips to meet the growing demands of this industry? So I think that's really something that's important to consider, whether those valuations kind of take into account those kind of risks as well. But it certainly hasn't been NVIDIA. A lot of big tech players have seen massive gains. If you look at Meta, it has doubled this year. If you look at Amazon, it's up 50%. So a lot of big tech companies, a lot of also some of the smaller players like C3.ai, with its ticker being AI, has been quite has seen quite a lot of demand as well. So C3.ai is up like 200% this year. So there have been some massive gains. And now let me tie that in with the kind of macro headwinds that are potentially coming our way in the near future. Whether you look at it from the perspective of economic data, where we have seen US economic data starting to weaken. Even on the services side, we've seen ISM services PMI starting to point at a deacceleration. So there are concerns that we are getting into an environment of slower growth after all the massive monetary policy tightening that we've seen around the globe over the last year and a half or so. And club that in with liquidity pressures that might come after the debt ceiling deal that we've seen has been signed recently as well. So all of those macro headwinds in place do bring a lot of risks for the markets. And having seen such gains in big tech or some of these specified AI names as well, I would think that some of the market participants might just want to lock in those gains now. So certainly, I think the rally has a lot of legs to go given the wide-ranging applications, but there are also some risks that investors should now keep an eye out for.
Yes, thanks, Charu. I think you've given a lot of very good points about how there's the developments, where's the potential in the market. But as you mentioned, there's many different players that investors can actually go into to be exposed to this team and to this market. And first of all, it's of course to invest into the players themselves that develop this technology and the chips and the GPUs, which is NVIDIA. And other than that, there's also other bigger tech names like Microsoft and Alphabet, the parent company of Google, who are literally, they're so big. There's so much research capabilities. So there's a lot of potential with them and AI. And lastly, also other players that are integrating AI into their software, into their technology, such as Salesforce, Adobe. So where do you see, the biggest gains in this
Well,
market?
that's quite a tricky one. What I can say quite convincingly is that just the players that you've named, maybe say Nvidia, Alphabet, Amazon, these will not be the only winners of the game, right? I mean, I'm sure the advantages are going to flow more broadly into the tech space and other spaces as well. Again, given the kind of transformation that AI can bring in our day-to-day lives, in our workplaces, the potential is certainly, it's immense. Just to help our listeners understand where they should be able to find some value, I would probably highlight one key aspect of AI, which is about the fact that AI learns every day, and to make it learn, you need to feed it data. The more data it is fed, the more accurate its responses would be. So any companies that have access to large amounts of data, say for example, again, Google, Alphabet, or Mastercard, Visa, Meta, of course, that has all of our data. So those players do have a distinct advantage. And the big tech companies, again, they have data, plus they also have a lot of excess cash to be able to purchase data. So the more you have access to data, in a way, kind of makes you able to deliver the more appropriate solutions. So that, I think, is a good space to be in. And the other thing that you rightly mentioned was about the varied applications in this space, like Salesforce and Adobe, something you mentioned. That's very interesting. But certainly, I mean, there are many wide ranging applications that can be transformed with the use of AI. There's been a lot of debate around whether Microsoft is going to be the big winner of this trend, or Google is going to be the big winner. And Microsoft was the first one to come up with their chatbot, the Chat GPT. But if you actually dig down a little bit deeper, you will find that Google is the one which has been investing in this space massively over the last decade or so. They did not come up with the product for ethical reasons or so. And then they had to rush into the market after the launch of ChatGPT with their Google Bard, and their first showcase of Google Bard was quite a disaster as a result. So that has obviously led to its valuations getting hit a little bit for Alphabet. But I do think it will really depend on which side of our lives see the most impact. Is it the enterprise solutions where we see more integration of AI space? That can certainly help Microsoft a lot more because they are the leader in the enterprise solutions side of the things. But if you see our day-to-day lives, the consumer side of things being impacted a lot more, say, for example, using your Google Maps, your Google Search, your Google Translates, then the consumer side, certainly Alphabet has the upper hand. So I think the applications part has to be really, like the pictures that are being transformed using Adobe. That has, again, massive usage in day-to-day lives and many corporates as well. So which kind of applications or which companies can launch new products and services which are massively incremental to their revenue streams as a result of integrating AI technologies? I think they will potentially be the eventual winners of this new trend.
Thank you so much, Charu. I think there's been really good points right there, and some inspiration for our listeners while listening in as well. So I think, we've discussed a lot about the different opportunities and players that we can be exposed to. But of course, what are the risks, going into this market, given that it has actually developed so fast
Yeah.
over the past few months?
Yeah.
What are the things that investors should really consider before going into it?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, like you said, there can be a lot of bottlenecks to this rally. One could certainly come, if you look at it only from a point of view of NVIDIA, can it continue to supply at least at the pace at which the demand is growing? But other than that, on a broader industry level, I think regulation is a big risk that can really disrupt this rally. But that's a much needed aspect of this whole business, because we've seen that with social media there's so much disinformation around, there's so much misinformation around, and AI just has the potential to take that several steps further, right? I mean, just the amount of inaccurate information that can come out of it, the amount of fake news that it can generate, the amount of privacy violations that it can have. It can have some far-reaching implications, right? So, I mean, like a few weeks ago, we saw this news about an image where it was showing a bomb blast in front of the Pentagon, and that was obviously quite volatile for the markets. It could have been, but then it was known that it was an AI-generated image. So, but anything like that, you could have AI generating CEOs of companies talking about their future growth plans, and these could be completely untrue, and you wouldn't know what to trust, what not to trust. So I think regulation really needs to approach this industry in the right way, and it has to be done hand in hand by the big tech players, plus also the policymakers need to step up. But overall, I think the sense is that just the pace of growth in the industry needs to slow down for the regulation to catch up. If it's the same as we saw with the advent of the social media, the industry grew so fast and regulation was never able to catch up, we might be in for some very tough times right ahead. So I think that's really key. But again, that brings me to a point on what that could mean for investors. Well, that certainly means that more regulation would mean higher barriers to entry into the industry. So that again brings an advantage to these big tech companies, the bigger players in the industry, which already have excess cash to continue to research and develop products that use the AI technology.
Mm. Yeah, very good points about that. And also, I think going forward, there's a lot of discussions about ESG and how important it is, especially in investments now. And yeah, I think there's been a lot of discussion about energy concerns regarding surrounding AI.
Yeah.
So maybe you can share a bit about that as well.
Yeah, absolutely. So, I mean, coming from a point where last year we thought that Europe was, in an energy crisis, it was not able to meet its demands of energy. It was diverting supplies from Asia as well to Europe. I mean, it was a grave crisis. We averted the crisis because the weather didn't turn out to be as bad as it could have been in the winter months. But certainly, energy is a deep concern because we are in an environment where we have a structural shortage of supply of energy, and the needs of AI technology are massive. Just general computers, if you see today, they utilize about 20 to 25% of the global energy supply. And it's expected that by 2040, all of the energy supply that we have today will be actually used for computing power. So, of course, I mean, and you add to that equation now the demands of the AI technology as well, just the massive data warehouses that will need to be set up to store all of that data, to build all of that computing power. The demand for energy is just going to increase exponentially from here. So I think what that means really is that, again, the pace of growth in the industry will probably need to slow down, and the focus could potentially also shift to some more sustainable AI products in the medium term to be able to address these energy challenges.
Thanks a lot, Charu. Yeah, so I think there's nothing wrong with being excited about the prospects of AI and to be exposed to this team. But of course, as Charu mentioned, there's a lot of also risks that we should be aware of, such as the regulatory risks, energy concerns, and also even the supply constraints going forward. Yeah, so if you're interested in investing into AI, you can explore the AI equity baskets that Saxo has created, and you can actually look into it in our platform. And we also have articles that's written by our head of equity strategy, Peter Ganri, speaking a lot about the developments in AI and where we see it going forward as well. We have popped these links in the description box below. So thank you so much for your time again, Charu.
Thank you, Fiona. I think it was a great discussion, and I hope our audiences would benefit greatly from that.
Yes, definitely. And really looking forward to the next episode already. So, yeah, we'll see you. And thank you for watching.